I'm Rebecca Prince-Ruiz from Plastic Free July, and I'm here with Lindsay Miles in her kitchen to learn about how to reduce plastic in the kitchen. So in 2012 you took the challenge, you saw a flyer in the library, and now you write about it, you're an educator, you help other people in the community to reduce their waste. I thought it would be great to ask you what you do in your life now, how you reduce plastic in your kitchen, right from the point when you go out and you go shopping to how you then store your food when you come home, the kinds of things that you've bought, and give people some really quick, easy tips. We always say in Plastic Free July, it's hard to reduce everything, but there's always something that people can do. So Lindsay, you started trying to reduce your plastic waste in 2012. So what did you start first?
Okay, so we already talked about how I saw the flyer, and then I went to watch this documentary, and it was all about all these things that you could do. And so I came home, and I guess the first thing I did was I looked in the pantry and I looked in the fridge, and kind of figured out what I needed to buy next. Because obviously, like the day you decide you're going to try and reduce your plastic, you don't need to replace everything because you've already got things in the pantry, things in the fridge. So the first thing really was, things like fruit and vegetables, things like bread, stuff that was going to go bad. So I went to the local supermarket and got a trolley, and I literally went up and down every single aisle, really, really slowly reading every single label and looking at every single piece of packaging to try and figure out what was plastic free. And so I remember the first things that I bought, like I got some mushrooms in a paper bag, and I got some bananas, and I realised you could buy bread rolls like that were loose, so a lot of the bread was plastic, but the bread rolls were loose. So I got some bread rolls, got some toilet paper, some chocolate, found some apple juice in a glass bottle. Then I remember the second shop that I did was kind of the same. So I had some more bananas and some more mushrooms and some more bread rolls and probably another bottle of apple juice, and I started to think, okay, I've started to make some steps here, but I'm going to have to find other ways to shop, other places to shop, just to see how I can start reducing things. Where I used to live, there was a shopping centre, it had like the big supermarket, but it had this other kind of independent grocer. So I went there, and then they sold things like loose leaf spinach and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, and I didn't have a bag. So I remember walking home just holding this handful of spinach. I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. So, it's just kind of one thing at a time. Also got a cupboard here that's, you can't really see, but it's literally full of jars, like all sizes of jars, big jars, small jars, bottles of things. Because when I first started, I started buying things rather than plastic, buying them in glass. So ended up with a lot of glass jars, and then when I realised that you can actually take your containers to a lot of the bulk stores and refill them, so I'll figure out what I'm buying and take suitable jars. Then I've got things like I've got reusable produce bags, so I've got these mesh ones. So these are really old, actually got them in 2012. They're made by Onya. They've lost the cords, but it doesn't really matter. So these are great if you're buying heaps of stuff, because the checkout person can see what you've got. Generally I put bigger things like fruit and vegetables in here, maybe things like almonds or something like that. So then I've got some of these ones that are better for spices, and actually you gave me these. These are my wedding present, I remember. Do you remember? I think you made them. Anyway, they're still going, so that's good. And then for bread I've got, and actually this was a gift from the Zero Waste Chef back in, because she was one of the first bloggers that I met when I started my own blog, and yeah, she made these, and so she sent me a couple, but these are great for buying bread at the store. When I first started, I'd read that a paper bag has 3 times the footprint of a plastic bag, like 3 times the carbon footprint. So often people who are pro-plastic, like plastic manufacturers, will say, oh, but plastic's got a lower carbon footprint. So I figured to myself, if I reuse paper bags 3 times, then I'm offsetting the... But I did find if I'd take a bread bag that I'd reuse 3 times to the bread shop, they were always a bit kind of like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to take that. So now I'll reuse them for things like, putting potatoes in the fridge at home and stuff. And so I use a clean bag for, I think it's kind of better if you're going to a shop to give them something that looks a bit more presentable. Here in Perth, where I live, like a lot of the shops sell a lot of the stuff without plastic. Usually there's 2 options, in plastic, without plastic. When I started, I didn't have this intention that I was going to change any of the things that I bought. Like just naturally, I just started buying more of the things I found easier to buy obviously, you know, and less of the things that were more challenging. And so over time, kind of adapted what I bought and what I ate. But that wasn't really like deliberate, and I didn't realise I was even doing it until, you know, 6 months in or a year in, I go, oh, I actually make a lot more dishes with these vegetables than I used to in the past.
Can you show us your fridge?
Sure. So the crisper drawer, like the point of a crisper drawer is to keep moisture in. So if you put all your vegetables in there with the vent shut, that's going to help stop things wilting. If there's anything that's really kind of fragile, you could put it in a container or wrap it in a tea towel. So something like this, I would either put it on a plate and I'll just make a plan to use it fairly quickly. Normally they don't go mouldy. I think the problem with plastic often is it stops the airflow, so things, you know, it's very easy for mould to grow. So I've got a bunch of Pyrex containers. So like this is, like I've been trying to de-seed a bunch of pomegranates that I got given, so I've got a few Pyrex containers. Big fan of glass jars. This is pesto, so glass jars are great for storage. And they're great for storing like things, you know, if you've got like a cut apple or a cut orange, you know, rather than pre-wrapping it, just put it in the jar with the lid.
I noticed you just saw some things like straight in the saucepan.
Oh yeah, so this is soup and this is pasta. So stainless steel lunchboxes can be quite expensive, but everyone's got a saucepan or two, and the thing is I'm going to probably heat that up. So this is the freezer. So I always store stuff in glass jars. So I freeze things like bits of like these are the leek ends, and I'll make stock with those next time I make risotto. So that's kind of a way of, I guess, reducing food waste, but it's also then a product that I don't need to buy, because as soon as you're buying things, you've got to think about the packaging. This is a banana. So what I discovered is there's a few things that, I mean, ideally you could peel it and put it in a container, but sometimes, you know, nature's got packaging already. You can kind of just get a knife between the peel and it comes off, and then you can use it in smoothies or in baking, just how you would a normal banana.
You would just think, oh, it's the banana's overripe, we'll just throw it out.
This is peanut sauce, actually. And I always make a big batch and then freeze. So this will be enough for like a pan full of vegetables for 4 meals.
And
so
you don't get the glass breaking?
No, so when things freeze, like if it's got water in it, it expands. I think with some of these which are liquid, you can kind of see it's like risen up a bit. So if it's a narrow jar and you put it right to the top, and then it tries to expand, it's just going to bust the jar because it's going to have the lid screwed on tight and it's going to split. So always keep the lid loose or off until it's frozen. Always fill it like far, so obviously that's the widest point, but you want to fill it a bit below that.
Do you think you have less food waste now?
Yeah, I think most of the food waste that I would throw away was you know, like peels and rinds and cores and stems and all of that kind of stuff. Like I think all of us think that we're very good at not wasting food. We like to think we're not wasting food. But when I stopped throwing plastic in the bin, because, you know, I was reducing it, and then any plastic I did get, I make sure I recycled. Like literally the only thing in my bin was food waste, and so then it was a really good chance for me to actually look at what I was throwing away, why I was throwing it away. I guess just looking at that and actually asking, you know, that you can eat a broccoli stalk, or can you make things out of banana peels? Like if you're buying things and you can use them up, obviously you need to buy less stuff, and then you're also wasting less food. So then it's learning to store things in the crisper drawer, or to put things in a Pyrex container, or to wrap them in a damp tea towel, or just to make sure that you're using them up first. Like I think if you go to the shops once a week, you've got to make sure that the stuff that you buy that's going to perish first, you use first. It's no good shopping on Saturday and thinking, oh, on Friday I'll make a salad, because by Friday it's going to be sad. So, you know, it's just about thinking about those kind of things. Pretty much everything I buy grocery-wise is from the bulk store. I generally don't buy anything in tins. I guess I find tins take up a lot of space. A lot of the tins come from a lot of the tin food comes from other countries. So if you ever try and buy tin tomatoes, in fact they always come from Italy, but we grow tomatoes in Italy, and we grow tomatoes in Australia almost all year round. So it doesn't make sense to me to be using so many resources to ship, you know, tomatoes that were grown in another country in a container that's been, you know, metals that have been mined and plastic, and like I just try and find alternatives. And for me, it's just easier to buy tomatoes and chop them up, or maybe when they're in season, buy a few more and put them in the freezer or something. So this is jar of chickpeas. When you cook pulses and legumes, they swell to about 2 to 3 times their size. So this is taking up the space of like maybe 2 cans, but it's going to make the equivalent of about 6 or 7 cans worth of chickpeas. This is my little coffee coffee machine. Love my little coffee machine. So it's a lever press. So I used to have one of those big plastic, like electric kind of coffee makers. Yeah, when it broke, I didn't really want to get it. I could have got another coffee machine secondhand, but it's just that thing of all that plastic, and also my kitchen's not huge, considering it's not really huge. To have a big appliance, you know, one of these big things sitting on the bench, I didn't really want that. So came across this. So this is just, so you pour hot water in the, basically you pour hot water in the top, you put your coffee in like this, you lift it up once the water's in, and then you push it down, and it like basically pushes like a coffee shot through. And then this funny little thing, this is actually a stovetop steamer, so it steams your milk. And I use cashew milk and it steams it really well. But I kind of feel like I could go to a cafe and get a takeaway coffee, and I can use a reusable cup, or it's dining, and it might still feel like there's no waste. But actually, I know that they're using cans of Tetra Packs of milk, and there's a lot of waste. Just because we don't see the waste in our own lives doesn't mean that it's not happening.
What about your beans?
So the beans is a local cafe that roast them, and they sell them. You can just go and get scoops of your own. A lot of the bulk stores have beans too.
Signed up for Plastic Free July this year for the first time. Don't know where to get started, feeling a little bit overwhelmed, don't have a bulk food store in my area. Like, what's your advice for someone who's doing it for the first time, and what's an easy win that you think most people can do, given that these are extraordinary times?
The first thing is really just to figure out exactly what options you've got in your area. And that's not to say that you suddenly start shopping at 15 different shops, but just figure out what, just kind of, I guess, survey what's around you. Maybe do the thing that I did, where go into the supermarket and just literally walk up and down every aisle. Hopefully from there you'll notice that maybe there's some fruits and vegetables that you've never bought before, or maybe you'll notice that you can buy pasta in cardboard. It's actually not as difficult as we think. Like, I think it's interesting with making stuff, because people think that making stuff is kind of really hard and really overwhelming. But then there's other things where you make things like hummus or pesto, and you make them and you go, this took 30 seconds. Like, why was I buying it in a tub? Or, so sometimes it's just a case of the things that are hard, just trying them out and making them. If you're not really into cooking, maybe get together with some friends and make an event of it. Cooking is a really good way to learn about our food and appreciate it a bit more. About this a lot with Plastic Free July, where people sign up to Plastic Free July and then 3 days in they do something like accidentally get a plastic bag, or accidentally get a plastic straw, or accidentally buy something they thought was cardboard and it's plastic in the middle, and then they're like, no, I failed at Plastic Free July. But it's not really about not using anything, and the first time you do anything wrong, that's it, it's over. It's gonna be, there were so many mistakes that I made. There's still things where I assume something's gonna happen one way and it doesn't. I assume, like these days I just assume drinks don't come with straws, and then you get a straw and you're like, oh, there's so many things that mistakes we make, and we're always going to make them. So I kind of think it's that thing of not giving up. It's going to be a process. So if you make a mistake, accept that we all make mistakes. We will all continue to make mistakes, and just keep going. And if that's too hard, there's like 99,000 other things that you can maybe do instead. So park the too hard thing. If you have to buy that thing, people say, oh, I can only buy milk in plastic. Okay, do that. But then what about all of the other things? And then hopefully there'll be, just 1, 2, 3 things that you just start with, and then keep going. Like, this is 9 years of keeping going. So if you keep going, you'll get there. Just keep chugging away.
Thanks, Lindsay, and thanks very much for sharing all of your ideas and resources through your blog and your books, which we'll also share with our audience as well.
Thanks for popping around.